Um,
What's up, YouTube? It's K2 Karama here again, and this is a new thing I'm doing now. I meant to make a video about it earlier, but I just never had the chance. I've been really busy working, and I just haven't had any time to do anything at all on YouTube. But this is something I want to do pretty much every week if I can, or if we can. It's our very own podcast, um, and it's called the Philosopher's Stone Cast. Basically, it's a podcast about philosophy, and we just uh, talk about topics about pretty much everything and anything. And then we have a philosophy topic at the beginning of every podcast. So, for the first part of the show or podcast, we're doing the philosopher's topic. But first, let me introduce my friend Justin here. He's going to be going by the name of Ape from now on. So say hello, Ape. He's eating a hamburger.
Hi guys.
All right. And then we have a really, really special guest here too. Also, he is the darkness, and that's all he is. He's just pure darkness. If he wants to say some words, you can say them now. Introduce yourself.
Yep.
Okay. Um, if Justin would just stop chewing on this hamburger for a little bit.
It's delicious.
Um, this podcast is a philosophy podcast. We talk, we do lots of philosophy topics. Uh, since you know a lot more about philosophy than I do, tell everybody what philosophy is, pretty much.
Well, you see, philosophy's a lot like a hamburger. No, actually, philosophy simply means the love of knowledge. In its etymological roots, it's philosophy. Philos, Sophie. Sophie meaning knowledge, to, you know, like, and phile, like in pedophile. To love something, except not children, knowledge. You know. All right.
What
And
if you
then,
know about children?
but no.
Philopedophilia?
Later in the history of humanity, people began to form thoughts, you know, real thoughts about shit.
Okay, that's great, man.
Hold
But
on, I've got
I
to.
forgot to mention at the beginning of the podcast that I do need to make a disclaimer that this is just all the topics and the stuff we say and talk about is just for entertainment purposes. It's not to be taken seriously. So if you do take it seriously, then just go
It's your own
away.
damn.
You're not meant to be here. And so
I'm sorry for opening
without
with
further ado,
I don't like children.
our first topic, the philosophy topic of our first ever Philosopher's Stone. Damn, I can't talk. The Philosopher's Stone cast is beliefs. The topic for this podcast. Belief. Why people believe in things. Why do we even believe um, in anything at all? So yeah. What do you think, Justin?
Oh, all right. Well, you have an interesting question there. Why do we even believe anything at all? Well, I think the important question here is why not? But no, that's a joke. Uh, the truth of the matter is we form beliefs based off of information we gain. The reason we do this is because it calms those nerves in our body that react and tell us to freak out because we don't understand what's going on. So if we can form these little thought bubbles in our head that kind of say, oh, this is what's going on here, and that this is, obviously what reality is composed of. So let's go ahead and operate in such a way that we can effectively live in this reality that we're forming these beliefs about. Now, there is a difference between a belief and knowledge. In the case that you're talking about methodological naturalism, if you extend it back to solipsism, then it's all meaningless and moot to begin with. So, methodological naturalism, at that point, you are basically saying there are certain things in this world that we can know because they give us predictive capability and the ability to make technology that wouldn't work unless what we knew was correct. So, the thing is I can have a belief about something that there very well may be facts out there about that prove me wrong. I just don't know that yet. The difference between a belief and knowledge is if you believe something, there's room. If you know something and you can show you know something, there's no room for people to really contradict it. But people will anyways. So
Yeah. And as far as beliefs, it's not just believing that there's a God or believing that if I touch this hot thing, it's gonna burn me, or something like that. I mean, it's kind of hard to put into perspective sometimes what belief actually is.
mm-hmm.
But I think it's definitely something that's natural inside of us. Like it's biological, I guess, that we have to believe in something to survive.
I don't know exactly about that. Like we have biological factors that enforce things about how we think. For instance, and this is loosely taken from a documentary that Richard Dawkins did, which he talked about, humanity wouldn't have gone very far if children didn't listen to their parents when they said, "Don't go near the water, something might get you." If they had been critical thinkers and decided to go out there, "Oh, I'm going to test out the water anyways to see if what they're saying is true," they'd probably have gotten eaten by a crocodile on the Serengeti.
Yeah.
So we inform a lot of our beliefs based off of what our parents tell us. We hold these things to core because we know that they've survived long enough, imperatively in our brains, we know they've survived long enough to make us. So while we're children, what they say is pretty much, oh, it's reality. If you're a little kid and your dad tells you something, you're gonna go tell everybody that that's the truth, pretty much, even if it's not.
And they'll believe that until something proves it otherwise, like when they're older and they realize what's actually happened.
In a lot of ways, critical thought goes against basic survival instinct. But without it, we would not have come anywhere near as far as we have as a species.
Yeah, that's true. So what are your thoughts on beliefs, Darkness?
Since our earliest ancestors, far back before the Ming Dynasty, when our earliest recorded history was discovered, that's as far back as we actually have written recorded history, aside from hieroglyphics and the pyramids. And
Epic of Gilgamesh is early. It's not history, but it's an early telling of a story.
Yeah. I mean, we discovered things that have happened, but where they actually started documenting things for the purpose of informing the future about what has happened as correctly as possible. That's why there's so much speculation. Like, we have no idea. There's so many insane theories about how the pyramids came about. And if you look at that mathematically, about everything that went into constructing the pyramids, it almost, even our most intelligent scientists of today, they cannot make sense of it. Listening to them explain how the pyramids are put together is like listening to a child explain to you, trying to convince you that Power Rangers are real.
I don't know about that. Personally, I think if you go and you talk to an Egyptologist or someone who's an archaeologist who deals with Egyptian stuff, or you go and talk to someone who deals with other, archaic building sites. We can show pretty much how they move things, how they did what they did. The only thing we don't know exactly is how exactly they got such smooth cuts on certain things.
They had the blocks were 10 to 15 tons apiece and
Yeah.
were dragged hundreds of miles. And if you look at every single stone, with the tools that they used at the time to cut them so precisely, it would take 600, 700 years for it to have been completed. And that's work
No.
constantly.
We can actually show, because they did keep records, the foreman's records of the people who worked and stuff on these things, and we can show that it only took a matter of about 40 to 50 years to construct them. And that's with people constantly working.
Yeah, not to mention they had slaves too, right?
They didn't actually. Egypt didn't
people
actually have slaves.
Huh?
Egypt did not actually have slaves.
No.
Actually, Egypt was a fairly progressive country even back then.
Didn't they have
These people who worked on the pyramids were compensated fully. Their families were compensated after that person even died, so their grandchildren were compensated for their act towards the pharaoh. That's how it worked, and people actually did pretty well up until the Nile started to dry up a lot more, and it became more difficult for Egyptian society to thrive in that area.
I would have loved to seen Egypt with the Nile all just at its prime,
Oh God, it would have been beautiful, dude.
Yeah. But anyway, we're getting off topic a little bit. Back to beliefs. It's really interesting thing, and I'm gonna pull this to religion a little bit.
It's fear.
Yeah, it's almost like
fear drives. Why do we need to supplement ourselves with a belief? It's since we're born, we're asking questions. Everything from where do babies come from, and turns out that's pretty simple. It happens. It's a natural part of nature where a sperm carries its DNA, not unlike a virus injects its DNA into a host. Of course, I mean, sperm is it's a biotic organism. So, I mean, viruses are technically classified as abiotic, but still, it carries a strand of DNA to the female DNA, and those form in a beautiful display. It forms a human that starts to grow, the cells multiply, and we've just now begun to map out all these very what before would just look like gibberish. I mean, we could look at DNA, but now we're actually starting to understand which ones do what. Because at first it just didn't make sense that little ball knew how to form legs, toenails on the feet, teeth, 2 eyes in the front of the head.
This is actually something that I've taken a lot of time to research. The stuff that forms the basic formations, or pretty much tells the genetic code to form a body in whatever way, whatever creature it happens to form into, is called the Hox genes.
Well, I didn't want to break that down. That's way too detailed. I was just trying to say that since we form, it's been natural for us to want to know what, why, how. Because we're a kid, we ask our parents. You come home learning a bad word at school, and you don't even pronounce it right. What's a vagina? That's what I asked my mom. And she says, vagina? Where did you hear that? At school. Some kid told me that a man has to suck on a woman's vagina to make a baby. And I asked my mom if that was true. And she said, no. What? And so I got a crash course on how wieners and vaginas work pretty early, because I just kind of boxed her in a corner. But on this, we want to understand things, and understanding how babies are made, that's a simple step. It's as simple as understanding the most basic. The sperm fertilizes the egg when a man ejaculates into the woman, and it develops, and she later gives birth to it. It's fairly simple. There's lots of details, like Justin was going to get into. He likes to go off on a crazy Doc Brown rant, I guess, from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
No, like, what do you think
The flux
about
capacitor.
what do you think about the entire it's a complete possibility. It's like this can happen. We just haven't really done it yet. You take the genetic information from a sperm, and you take the genetic information from another sperm, and you put it into a blank egg cell, two blank egg cells, and then you put those two egg cells into one gametial lipid pattern. You could technically grow a human from two male genetic codes.
Yeah, if you took the right bits
Sure,
and
they're
pieces
working
so
on
it
it,
fit
though.
together
Sure.
correctly.
Well, you wouldn't even have to take the right bits and pieces. Whether or not, okay, a male sperm has the exact genetic information. It's exactly half of the genetic information necessary, and a female's egg has the same thing, but just in a different lipid structure. Um,
So does that mean it'll always come out as a boy, though?
yeah, if you have two males, it'll be a boy, unless you change certain factors about the early stages of the development.
Yeah.
Naturally, there's dominant genes that would cause a child to be blonde instead of brown. That's why you can have two two parents that both have brown hair, and they can have two kids and then have that third one come out blonde.
Yeah, that has to do with recessive traits and the chance of gene anomaly. But like within this particular case, if you did have two sets of male DNA in one gamete or one zygote, sorry. So one male gamete and one male gamete, but in the lipid host structure of an egg cell, to where it forms a human. The gene structure will always be XY, so it will always be a male. The same thing if both of them are female. Unless you change early pregnancy conditions, then they will continue on in whatever sex they were before. So it's more or less like certain things are pretty much predominant. Like I've seen this in a meme on Facebook. If you were to take the story of Adam and Eve, and you take it literally, and you say that God took Adam's rib to make Eve. If you were to take the genetic structure in his rib to make Eve, not only would it be the same person, it would be another male. Unless he could magically change all of that, which that's what people would claim.
Back to fear. When we're a child, it's a fear of the unknown, so we want to take the unknown and know it. So we ask our parents, anyone that can teach us, and that's why religion gets into children's heads at such a young age. When I was a kid, I believed in all of that religious stuff because that was the only thing I knew to believe. But then I started thinking about things that, you know, what about someone who grew up in a third world country and they didn't know about that God? Do they still get in trouble with God and go to hell when they die if they never knew about it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
no
that
one
was
really had an explanation for that. And then you grow up and you learn that there's all these different religions, and they're all based around the same God. They originated based on the same ideas, but it's fear that makes people cling to certain things. If you can let go of that fear, it can actually give you a very sobering view of the world because you're no longer fixated on, well, it's kind of like when you choose to stop believing in Santa Claus. You take that big step when you're growing up as a child, and for the longest time you're afraid to not believe that because you don't want to not get presents, because I mean it takes a while for your brain to develop enough to where you can say, all right, that's made up, and then
usually
you let
about
it
age
go.
7.
Hmm?
Usually about age 7 is when people have to have a full
Yeah.
capacity to
For
detect
for
fiction.
Yeah.
for for a while, when I only thought there was only one religion, Christianity, because that's all I've ever known growing up, and I really tried to believe, like really really tried, just because my mom was a single mom and we were just moving around and just trying to survive, and we're always at church, and I spent a lot of time in a church, but the whole like ever since I was a little kid, like 2 maybe or whatever, it just didn't make sense to me. Everything just the whole process of it, going to this building with all these people and just singing songs and kneeling and standing and you know donating money and then coming back home and it's back to whatever.
Yeah.
But I really tried to believe in it, all of it, and and I thought I felt stuff, but I know I really didn't. Um, I don't know. It's just weird, and so I finally stopped believing it, and I'm just I believe I'm alive, and I'm just trying to survive every day. Yeah,
See, like
but
this is why it's important when we're discussing philosophy for people to whenever you're talking with people, it's important to know their positions, their philosophical positions, and to that, it's also important to know what philosophical positions are and which ones represent you. Um, like it's important, at least if we're trying to talk to people out there about this, to where they can go research it and figure out what this stuff is themselves. Um, I am a hardcore determinist, methodological naturalist, atheist. You know, and before all of that, I'm a skeptic. The skepticism is what led me down all of those roads.
yeah,
And that's really the difference between a person who is, you know, a superstitious believer and a person who's an intellectual, you know, secularist.
I'm a little bit I don't know what I would say. I'm not religious in any way, but I'm a little bit more open if something like amazing something if I see something amazing, I want to believe in it. I don't know how to explain it.
I get what you're saying.
Like
It's
like I just want to like if I saw an alien in my room and I can touch him and I see him and he talks to me in the head, I'm gonna believe it.
yeah.
Aliens are real.
But like if you see that
Yeah.
and it like oh you see all of that and all that other stuff, the first thing you should do is take him to like you know take him to go like party where other people can see him and
Damn.
let it get like on the internet that this was an alien and then like get his phone number.
Now he's gonna take a fucking body shot or whatever.
He's gonna
I
do
mean
it.
like seriously like that's what my point is if you just saw it and then all this other stuff and then he like knocks you out with some knockout gas and he just wanted some basic information about people and then you remember all of that, but it's like the next day after you've woken up or whatever, then it's kind of like you could still have hallucinated that. It's entirely possible and probably more likely that you did.
I guess that's just kind of stuff that makes people go crazy.
Hmm.
Because if
But
you
then
think about
there's the
it,
question:
if you really,
did
really,
that make them go crazy, or were they already crazy?
like, if you really, really think about it, I think everybody's crazy. It's just some people are crazier than others.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I don't think that there's a black and white dichotomy where there's sane people and insane people. Everybody could
I
be pushed
mean,
to
what is
insanity.
really sane? It's not really. It's something that we determine to like. Okay, this is the
It's subjective.
no. Yeah, the normal.
Well, there is a way that you can get as close as possible to talking about what insanity versus sanity is objectively. And there's two definitions that are commonly used. One of them is that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And then the other one is that to be insane is to operate within the world in such a way that you're not paying attention to basic tenets of reality that everyone else is like, oh guys, you can't fly, stop trying to jump off the building. It's like you're trying to explain to someone they can't actually do that, but they actually believe they can. Or they believe that these things are going on when you can demonstrate to them that they aren't, but they're seeing it. So they're, that's when it becomes insanity.
Cool. All right, I think we can end that segment right there. I like it so far, dude. This podcasting stuff is pretty cool.
I wonder if we got any viewers yet.
No, we don't have any viewers, but I just saw this thing that says links. So
Yeah.
We can link it to the YouTube page, and I'm gonna share it real quick. So
yeah. And like, let's post it on Facebook too. And if we get some people, I know, like after it's done and we upload it all the way, people probably watch it since it's on your channel.
They'll probably watch it. At least I know at least one person's gonna watch it.
Yeah.
So hello.
To our one.
Just give me a second. We're gonna take a little quick break while I
right.
share this link here.
I put new strings on my guitar. I was getting some fret buzz, and I got rid of it. Also cleaned the shit out of it with less oil and got all of the dead skin cells from the frets.
Okay, guys, I'm back. I just shared it on our band page. All right. The next segment of this podcast, we're gonna go into some news. Since we were talking about beliefs and religion on this podcast, I found it was funny that it popped up because I just thought about the topic for this podcast today while I was at work, and it popped up on my Facebook. And this is a story from here, Georgia, in Gwinnett County. The story is, well, I'll read you the title. The title is Gwinnett Parents Outrage Over Homework About ISIS Beheadings. And the story goes, this happened in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Gwinnett County mother is upset over a middle school homework assignment that she says should never have been shown to students. The lesson goes into detail about ISIS and includes a political cartoon of a man holding a bloody knife. Jones Middle School leaders say it's an appropriate lesson to plan, but the mother of the 12-year students told Channel 2 that this is too far, that it went too far. The guy's name on there, I'm just going to read that.
Extreme conservative parents afraid that their children are going to be harmed some way by seeing things that are gruesome or bloody or seeing people die. But the fact remains is that is a very real part of the world that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And those people that are doing those things are very real themselves.
They're just stopping students from learning what's going on. They have to understand that this world is fucked up, and you're going to be living in it soon. Like, out in the open, you're not going to be safe.
I wish I had learned that much, real truth that early, so I didn't have to get such a horrible crash course when I got older. Like, being told that Columbus discovered America, he thought he was landing in India. That's why the Native Americans were called Indians, and they just never changed it.
And he wasn't even the one who discovered it in all rights. Leif Erikson,
Yeah. But and also on this story, like the picture that they have on here, It's not even. It's just a black and white cartoon picture, um, and it's just a guy walking away from a little wall that says "coexist" on it. That's been teared down, and he just has a knife. It's like a trail of blood. Um,
Is
it's
this
kind
for
of
the next
hard
show?
to say a lot about this because they don't say exactly what the lesson was.
Yeah.
So there's, unless you say that, this story is not really, it's kind of just like made up to to start conversations.
Well, I mean, if the lesson was like
I
all
think it.
Muslims are horrible people and
Well,
blah blah
that's
blah,
crazy.
Yeah.
I
and
think it
maybe
would
the
be
lesson.
very healthy to promote rational thought, teaching children to think independently at a young age by showing them something like that that's very real, that happened for whatever reasons it may have happened, and then ask the child, what do you think when you hear about this?
Yeah.
I agree with you. That should be how the lesson plan goes. What do you think? But like then if it doesn't go that way, if the teacher's being more or less, they're basically saying, oh, screw these Middle Eastern people, and lopping them all in as Muslims for one, lopping all Muslims as extremists for two. That could be bad. But if that's not what they're doing, then, I'm sure some people have a problem with the fact that they're younger, but I do think it's important to expose people to the reality of the world.
It could be dangerous if, say, there was a young Muslim child with Muslim parents that happened to be in that class. That could have become a very large issue because then the teacher would have to explain to that child, you know, or if that child might have been bullied, and that could have been a situation that the teacher would have to diffuse, and if she couldn't, then that it's a very sensitive thing to expose children to, especially the way people tend to overact when it comes to their children being exposed to anything extreme. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if it's right or wrong in anyone else from anyone else's point of view. It's the fact that it's extreme. It could be uh, the Muslim extremists overseas of their from their respective groups, because it's not just ISIS. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any others, but there's several different militant groups popping up that are they're doing their own thing, and it usually involves people getting killed. It could be
Mm-hmm.
from that to asking children about the Holocaust. Of course, the chances of a child with German parents standing up and yelling something anti-Semitic is pretty. That's
Pretty
it's
low.
not likely to happen.
Yeah.
I
But
mean, it's possible for a child to have some like neo-Nazi, white
yeah,
supremacist style parent who's just like the Holocaust never happened, because there are Holocaust deniers out there.
I think it's
Uh,
because so much time has passed. We can bring up the Holocaust and the millions that were killed, and we can talk about it, and people's reaction is more controlled. You can show children pictures of the piles of bodies of the dead Jews, and they don't
hmm
go running home and the parents freak out. I think it's because we're currently caught up in this conflict that it's way more real because it's happening right now. It's not,
Yeah.
you know, 30 years
Well,
ago.
it's one thing also to show, a mass grave in old black and white. It's a total different thing. Like if they were to actually show a full
Yeah.
HD video of someone cutting someone else's
Yeah.
head off.
Because I think deep down inside, even if you're a little kid, you see a dead body, you're gonna be like, what the fuck?
Hmm
Just because that's what in nature, that's a dead body. That's bad for you. You just know that. It's just instincts,
hmm
you know.
And
But
there's
to
still,
actually see someone kill someone else, that's watching someone make someone turn into a dead body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the way media is now, all the footage that's popping up on the internet of all these killings, there's thousands of executions.
hmm
If this type of mainstream like media connectivity existed during the Holocaust, can you imagine the lasting effects that would have, they would have, like you said, high definition in color footage of, dozens of them being hoarded into the buildings where they were gassed, or just showing them being whipped or beaten, or showing their bodies thrown in like they were dead logs into the big piles where they were burned.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been a lot more intense. I think that's why.
It probably also wouldn't have happened for as long.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Because the people, it's kind of like Vietnam. People didn't know what really happened in Vietnam until years after it was over.
Mm-hmm.
You come to find out, most people didn't even think, and I'm pretty sure we didn't even need to be over there. I think it was more of a thing where we were an ally of.
What it was is, if you look at the CIA logs and stuff that's been not all the way redacted, what we did was we put into place over there in Vietnam before it split, pretty much plants, democratic plants, to try and get people to move away from being communistic, because communism was the big fear back then. They went ahead and they wanted to oust all of the communist, regime players in that area. Because Vietnam is on the short list of who we were trying to gain control over in a capitalist sense over the USSR. So when we went to war with Vietnam, it was in an attempt to continue to hold what power and what sway we had there. So, the fact that communism existed there had a lot to do with the Russians, obviously. Because before, there's wars to be waged, before there was weapons to be traveled through and people to be paid to do this work and to do work for the USSR during the time, then perhaps we wouldn't have had a reason to be over there. But really, I agree with you. We probably shouldn't have been over there, because it's not our place to fight different political ideologies around the world. We should just worry about our political ideology here to a certain extent, unless people are violating others' human rights in mass.
I think part of the reason we are over there in the first place is because they are looking after themselves. It's not, we're just going here just to help. There's something in it for them. They're just not saying what.
Well, what's in it, like nowadays, where we're at, like overseas in Syria and in Iraq and all of these places, it has to do with the fact that we have a presence there, both in the interest of spreading our brand of capitalism, and also in the interest of garnishing whatever resources happen to be there for our own use. There's they call it fighting for God, which is guns, oil, and drugs. So, or gold, oil, and drugs. But right now it's guns, oil, and drugs. What we've done in the Middle East is set up regimes in which we sell weapons to them, and then once they go all to fuck, we go over there, kill them, and then take those weapons back from them, and then sell those weapons to the next regime we put in place.
That sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
we create the instability.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I was checking on Facebook, see if I could find anything interesting to talk about next. And there was this video that popped up of these ISIS dudes. They were in a gunfight or whatever, and they were behind. And then one of the guys, he had a rocket launcher or a RPG or whatever. And he stepped out with it, just like, and shot it. But when he shot it, he had it backwards. And so he had a partner right behind him, and instead of shooting, whoever was shooting, I guess the U.S. or whoever was over there fighting them, shot the guy behind him, and he just gets knocked to the ground.
Well, that's just clumsy.
It was crazy.
I wouldn't mind seeing that with some old ragtime, like early 1900s music queued up behind that.
Well, like all
No,
this,
the,
all this nonsense of killing people and stuff for beliefs that you're gonna go to heaven because you do this. It's kind of stupid to me. Yeah.
I like to
have you
think that it's
seen?
just a bunch of people that didn't get like that early education that being showed an an unfiltered view of the world at a young age. See, like America, that's one reason why we are seen by many other cultures of the world as the way we are because we are ignorant to so many things. I was actually talking online with a guy from Australia. He's a farmer. He works on a farm all day. We were playing a game together. And this guy knew more about my government than I did.
It doesn't
And he started
surprise me.
telling me like, "Yeah, well, I'm not going to try to do an Australian accent because I don't do accents, but he started telling me about the types of relationships that his government has with our government, and I was like, see, that's news to me. Our government intentionally, and we all know that the media we get a filtered view of the world because there's a lot of things that if the general public was just fed raw facts straight to them, it it would cause a lot of problems. That was the main reason that, and I'm not going to go off on a rant about right to bear arms, but the main reason that the right to bear arms was added to our Constitution was so that if the people one day deemed their government too corrupt and unfit to rule them, they would have the means to stand up and stop them from basically steamrolling over them and snowballing.
Yeah.
Well, my thing is when people talk about having the Second Amendment to be able to do that, yes, and it's with a well-regulated militia as well. But I think personally, if when this country, if it does, and I hope that things go the way I hope they go politically here soon, um, but if it gets to the point that we deem it that corrupt, we won't just have us on our side. Our armed forces are our family too. Like the people who make up our armed forces are part of other people's family. They're not going to go and kill their own families. Nor are they going to let people. You're never going to see it when our armed forces turn against us because our armed forces are volunteer and they come from families here in the U.S.
Like martial
Uh,
law.
yeah, but my thing is you're never going to see that sort of Orwellian uprise sort of thing. What I think you will see is the armed forces helping us, helping the side of order and decency and not being a fucking asshole to people in general. But I'm hoping that politically that Bernie Sanders will be elected, that we can collectively see as a society that there's certain rights that the rest of the world, the rest of the more developed world has anyways, that we should also have. In general, it helps the populace if they can get medical care, and it helps the populace become more productive if they can get education without going into debt. And through that production comes a virtuous cycle that pretty much lets you, use the total profit of society for the good of society, and still allow people to operate in a free market. It
I
doesn't have to
think
be either.
I think, and this sounds extreme, but I think education should be free because freedom of information that also extends to education. Because what is education if not the pursuit of information and knowledge? And
Mm.
to put a price on knowledge restricts people without money to not having as much knowledge, and all that does is. And I don't want to go off on a rant about the status quo, about how there's a very small percentage of people that are extremely well educated. I mean, almost every president we've had behind Barack Obama has family ties back to British royalty, back in the colonial times. The Kennedys do. Even now, that they're an American royal family.
Mhm.
So,
That's why I think it'll be interesting to get a statesman into office because I'm not sure how familiar you are with Bernie Sanders or anything like that. Um, but his whole political career, which has been 40 some odd years, he's an older guy, but none of his political donations came from Citibank or any of these large corporations. They all came from union, stuff, teachers' unions, labor unions, or individual donation for him to be able to fund his campaigns. As such, he hasn't had as much money as these people who have the super PACs like Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, who can afford it on his own. But he, for the past 40 years, has advocated for the progressive agenda that most of us agree with nowadays, and kind of fought against the status quo. His actual platform is to give people tuition-free college. It is to give people universal health care in a single-payer system. Um, Also to advocate raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour so that people can get off of government subsidized programs and actually make the top classes pay their fair share both to their workers and to society in the form of tax. Because we could actually afford free college for everyone simply by putting a tax on Wall Street speculation. It's very easy.
can you imagine if, and I know you've heard the old saying, the enemy of,
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
no, it's the enemy in you is the enemy in me.
Oh yeah,
So, like, if we don't know each other and you're trying to hurt me, I'm going to try to hurt you back to stop you from hurting me, like two snakes eating their tails. One's doing it because the other's doing it, and eventually there's nothing left because they're attacking each other for the same reason. One's attacking the other, and
yeah.
it's back and forth. And I think that us as humans, we are not nearly as in control of our existence as we think. Because if you look at the way humans behave on a large scale, it is literally a rat race with lots of bits of cheese at the end. Each rat trying to stop the other rat so that he can get to the end and get more cheese, and then he wants to hoard the cheese to himself. And now he has control over the rats with the less cheese, and he can hand out bits of cheese to the other rats and gain control over those rats. I mean, why? Look at what we do with our governments. Why are there so many different governments, each one pouring 90% of their revenue that they pull from their taxes from their people and dumping it straight into military hardware, into power, posturing constantly? Look at these new battleships. Look at these new long-range missiles. We can shoot farther than we could before. Now we
Well,
make bigger explosions. Now we have a nuclear program. We have nuclear capabilities.
yeah. That's
Constant.
mostly
and
us,
and all
Russia,
the
and some of the more or less developed military-industrial countries. More developed countries like Norway, and Denmark, Sweden, the likes of those countries don't pour most of their revenue into military. They pour most of their revenue into the people and into education, into solidifying the energy structure to where they're not creating a large amount of pollution, and they're also able to provide very cheap, if not free, energy to the people. This allows people to pursue higher things that actually creates more GDP or more gross domestic product for the people in that country. Um, so they can actually increase the means of their living not through warfare, but through technology and through art and through education and being able to teach.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the exact point that I was working towards. That very idea of not pouring all this money into things that
yeah.
do nothing but keep us where we are. But what if we took all that money and made education free so that everyone that wanted to learn and become more knowledgeable of the world around us, whether it was learning what makes a starfish cling to a rock where you can't pull it off. That seems pretty neat. You ever tried pulling a starfish off a rock? I mean, it seems stupid, but it's just a little bitty thing, and it grabs onto it, and it's stuck there. You can put a crowbar under it, and that son of a bitch is stuck on the rock.
Yeah, man.
And that's just a simple function that one organism has. What if we could just take And see, if you want to learn, if you want to be a marine biologist and learn about starfish, seahorses, if you want to learn what,
Yeah.
if you want to be a
Learn.
Bigfoot hunter, I mean,
The
you
thing
can
is
wear
like
your underwear on the outside of your pants and be a crazy person. That's fine. But if you
people
want to learn,
argument
do what?
the argument I usually hear against this is that people are like, you know how you're talking about learn about anything. They're like, well, people just learn about anything and it's not going to be useful. And I want to smack them in the face because I'm like, no matter what you're learning, what happens if like what you're learning, you turn around and you make a discovery that totally changes, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
how we
that's how
live.
new medicines are discovered. You get these people in the rainforest that spend their whole life looking for new plants, and then they come across one, and all of a sudden that plant produces some sort of secretion, when during springtime that just so happens to have some miraculous adverse effect on the balding process that happens with certain men that have that lose their hair at a young age. I
There's
mean, it might
also
seem arbitrary because I mean it's just hair, but what if all of a sudden we find? I mean, that's how almost all medicines. Something as simple to us as aspirin.
mm,
If you were to have a time machine and go back to ancient Greece and show them that, I mean, of course they would probably kill you because you're a witch, but you know, jokes aside, they wouldn't, or show them like an oxygen tank and say, I can breathe underwater, I'm a magic man. It's a perfectly simple piece of engineering by today's standards, but we need to stop putting so much money into reinforcing that whole the enemy in you is the enemy in me
Yeah.
mindset that everybody has.
Yeah.
The governments have because they're so terrified because their one job is to do one thing, is to protect their people. That's their main objective. But I just have trouble understanding how at some point humanity split into so many different ideals to where it got so extreme that this happened. Countries like North Korea, how many years did it take? Because, I mean, sure, it probably started back a long time ago with a really wealthy family that started just buying up land and gained control, but
it took about 5 generations to get the people in that country to believe that that family was God.
that, I mean, and there also is a lot of control because I've watched documentaries about how they control the media. Their cell phones in Korea are
Yeah.
only capable of dialing inside North Korea. And some of the people actually illegally modified their cell phones so that they could make calls outside the country. They were activists that would go and tie bags of cell phones and bags of like flash drives that had American movies on them, and they would fly them over the border because that's actually a really hot commodity is American media over there because those people they don't know anything outside the world. They see all this, and that's what causes a lot of North Koreans to flee to South Korea.
hmm Hell, they're brought up their whole lives thinking that the rest of the outside world, like you're taught that this is the great leader, whether it be Kim Jong Il or Kim Jong Un or his son if he has one. I just wonder what's going to happen when the Kim Jong family has nothing but girls.
Yeah, that's a weird belief system. They're going to they're probably going to have to do something because kind of like Fidel Castro. For the longest time, people thought that he was just going to die, and he was going to take that power to the grave with him.
hmm
And I can't remember his first name, but if I'm not mistaken, he has a son now that's slowly taking his place.
I believe it was his brother while he wasn't acting, and his brother Fidel Castro's brother.
It's his
And
brother.
then
What's his name?
after Castro died, his son has influence now. But for the most part, since we're opening ties back to Cuba, chances are it's not going to remain a dictatorship. Um, you
Yeah.
know,
Anyway, guys, I want to get to a different topic here before we just keep going on.
Gay marriage.
No. This next topic.
If
Uh,
everybody would just be gay, it would just be a non-issue.
okay. this,
Maybe gay's a choice. Maybe dicks are better than vaginas. Have you ever sucked a dick? Have you ever sucked a dick?
no.
maybe I don't
Well,
know.
you might like it. You might touch that dick on the tip of your tongue and just think, "Oh my God, This whole time I've been trying to have sex with women. I could have been sucking dicks. And your whole world's going to turn around in an instant. It's going to feel like you've been living a lie. I'm just saying.
Anyway, this topic here is,
At that point, it wouldn't be a choice though, because your biological the factors that like your sex drive, once experiencing that, you would be like, that's what I want. You didn't make the choice to want that.
The point I'm trying to make is vegetarians are stupid.
all right, man.
Cut me off before I could get to my point.
Great words from the darkness there. Okay, for the next topic, I want to start it off with a story that happened to me today at work. For those of you who don't know, which is most of you guys on the internet, I got
This man touched him on his wiener.
I got a new job working selling cable out of Walmart. And
What's the name of the company?
I talk to a bunch of people every day.
Don't tell them the name of the company.
I meet a lot of crazy people every
They
day.
make him wear a shirt that says "I love."
And this lady, today I was working and this lady came up to me and she seemed like a normal, white lady, probably
You are a racist, sir.
in her 40s. And
Well, normal to you?
I'm trying to tell my story.
I'm sorry.
And I asked her, ma'am, do you have our services? Do you need cable internet? And she stopped for a second, and then turned around and looked at me, and she says, "Yeah, I have your company service, and I've been hacked." And I was like, "Okay." Yeah, and then she goes on and on about how she's been hacked, and somebody hacked the cable company and using their DNS servers to hack her and steal her pictures and post on Facebook and Twitter that she's ISIS or whatever, and posting her face on like dog porn pictures and stuff like that. Just crazy shit. And she goes on and on telling me about these people's names and
Wow.
email addresses, and she's telling me that everybody is hacked. Every single person in the U.S. is hacked, and that I'm being hacked, and there's all this information going on. We just don't know it. So
did she have a tinfoil hat on?
No, she looked like I said, like a normal lady. So speaking of that, I mean, she told me all about this crazy shit and stuff, and I said I just wrote down whatever, and she said bye, and I said bye. I said I'm sorry, I can't help you. I just sell cable. I don't deal with all that stuff. But what I was trying to get to the topic is how the government spies on everybody, and they pretty much know everything about you. And it's weird because every single person that has an online profile, they collect data and they put ads together, and every single person has their own personal ads that you get advertised to online, or if you're going to a store. Like, it goes really deep and it's really creepy. And it's all true.
That's why.
It's all true. Like, they know what you like, what you don't like. If you're going to be somebody of importance when you get older, it's crazy.
Well, that's why I switched from Hotmail to Gmail, because somehow they figured out I like animal porn because they kept filling up my inbox, so somebody was watching me.
So yeah, that's the topic. What do you think, Justin, about the government and all this information being purchased and sold?
Well, information purchase and stuff like that is, it's weird. But it's a way for capitalism to drive itself further. The issue I find with it, and there's an easy fix, by the way. You can get a antivirus software, like one that's like user made, pretty much, open source, like Avast. And you have this little option you can check that is like detracker or detrackify. Like, you can make it to where you go on the internet, search for what you search for, and no tracking information is set out to any of the advertisers. And what's funny about that is if you do that and then you go on Facebook, you'll see that your ads are pretty much nonchalant, general, like, they don't know anything about you ads. They're just
Yeah,
general ads.
yeah. But I mean, I do like the ads that they say to me that they get out. Sometimes I buy stuff, sometimes I don't.
There was a
Um,
glitch in the matrix.
yeah, but also the internet is not the only way they collect your information. Every time you go into like a Target and you go in and you buy a new game, it just came out, and you buy it, you swipe your card, and then all the transactions are recorded, your card number, your name, and
Mm-hmm.
what you bought that day,
If you use a
and
card.
then
Well,
and then Target goes around and sells that back to whoever, and all that information gets sold to other companies to help market stuff for you and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
they've been doing that
It's a lot
for.
more complicated than that and legal than that, but it happens
But
even
they've
when
been
you're
doing
not
that for a long
online.
time.
You know these little cards you can get and scan at places where you frequent. The reason they do that is what they do is they build a profile on
Yeah,
the whole of America, what products are purchased most often, and then they'll take a gallon of milk, for instance, which may have been I buy store brand because it just tastes just as good. I don't see a point in spending like $3 more, but a gallon of milk that was $2. Well, they'll jack up the price to 2.50, but they'll knock off 10 cents if you use your card. So that's how they get you is they build a profile not just on you, but on what how many purchases are made of a specific product of a specific brand every single day. And then once they see that, holy crap, 23 however million people a week are buying a particular brand of cereal. So that one brand, that knowledge, that information, like you said, is sold to the maker of that cereal.
Yeah.
So then that's why I don't want to start naming brands because I don't know how much I can get away with, but like for
You can
instance,
name, you can say whatever brand you want, like on you have free speech on
okay,
YouTube. You
well,
can talk about
I
that.
mean I don't want to sound like I'm slandering anybody, but for instance, General Foods, they cover a large variety of cereals. They'll get that information and they'll take that one specific brand of their cereal that they sell a lot of, and they'll jack the price up 50 cents, and as a return that grocery store will knock off 10 cents. So the grocery store is making 40 cents a box. 23 million people, a week that have bought that box of cereal.
Yeah.
Divide 40 cents into 23 million. I don't feel like getting a calculator, but that's a lot of money, and that's just one product from one company. There's hundreds of different products in every grocery store across America that's being done to constantly. That's why I've walked into the grocery store and seen the frozen pizzas that sometimes are like $5. Well, one week they were on sale for $1.50.
See,
you buy a
whenever
bunch of them.
I worked at a grocery store for a little while, and it was IGA or whatever you want to call it. I'm not working there anymore, so I don't care. It's a horrible place. Um, Basically, they have this gas rewards program, and what they do is they go and not just like what you're saying, where they go and do the information pathway and do that. They literally hike up the prices of pretty much everything in the store. But they give you this thing where if you spend so much money, you get like 5 cents off per every $50 you spend in the store. And you
Yeah.
can get up to a free tank of gas, you know, but that's one free tank of gas compared to what you've spent, and everything that they've hiked the prices up for is to pay for that gas to begin with. So essentially, you're just buying what you would have bought anyways and being fooled into doing so at a higher price. But on top of this, they also get a subsidy from the government through their gas rewards program. So they're making money on top of the money they've already made. while only paying their employees $7.25 an hour.
Yeah, that's fucked up, dude.
What about healthcare? You got to go to the doctor's visit to get stitches. If you'd just saved up all the money for the months you've been paying in, you could have just bought your stitches. But instead, you're also paying a copay on top of your visit. If you pay for 2 years into insurance, why should you still be charged again when you go to the doctor?
Yeah, no.
You're paying me for me to have the insurance. Now I'm still paying money when I use it. Why am I giving you money? If I had just saved up the money that I've been paying you, I could have gone to the doctor for free, basically.
And that's why we need to regulate the pharmaceutical industries to where they don't charge ungodly prices for medications that are necessary for people. That's also why you give people a single payer system in which everyone has access to the health care they need. And we don't see a huge overhead of costs because we've regulated the pharmaceutical industry where they can't sit and jack up a drug 500% its normal price because they see more people are buying it.
They even pick favorite doctors. You go, and then there's doctors that are in network, and then there's doctors that are out of network. You have to go see a doctor that's in network because that insurance company won't support your visit unless that doctor's in network.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that sounds crazy. I think we should save that topic for a different podcast.
That could be like a whole podcast.
That could be a whole podcast.
We've been talking for 2 hours.
Okay, I think this segment is good. We're gonna move on to we're gonna start our gaming topic, where we talk about video games, not just video games, but also movies, entertainment, TV shows, music. But this first podcast is mostly
Penis enlargement.
and I'm gonna start the this segment with the Pit of Darkness segment, where Darkness talks about his favorite games in the world.
What? I didn't hear you. It sounded like you were gargling.
Some lag there, but yes. The darkness, the Pit of Darkness segment starts, and Darkness, I would like to know what is your topic in the Pit of Darkness today?
It might seem like an arbitrary subject to some people. Some people don't understand why I play games. Since I was old enough to hold a controller and play a game, I could sit in front of a TV for 24 hours straight and only get up if I had to eat or go to the bathroom. And I would come right back and be playing. It's just, like, some people sit around reading books. I guess I had severe ADHD my entire life, so a book, I'm not stupid, I can read, but it just doesn't keep my mind locked in. There's not enough action going on. But a video game, the more intricate, the better. I can focus all my thought energies on one thing, and that it kind of, when I'm playing a video game, I feel like my mind is actually at rest. When I'm sitting still not doing anything, I just have everything in my head running around and it's not going anywhere. When I'm playing a game, it's like all that energy is getting vented out, and I'm actually, it's like my brain is able to slow down to a reasonable level. Kind of like the information is moving too fast, but once I bog my brain down with a really complicated task like that, where there's lots of things to keep track of at one time, I feel like I can think more clearly, and it's just, on top of that, it's just really fun. But what gets me, and I guess it gets me so much because since I like games, there are certain games that I like more than others, is when a company gets greedy and decides to experiment with something that they should know better than to mess with, because when you have a winning formula, rule number one should be, you're winning, leave it alone. Just keep making money. But they'll kill, and I've seen this recently, several really big video game genres,
Like
or not so much genres, but sagas. I used the wrong word. Video game sagas where they've just had, platinum hit after platinum hit, and then you'll get to the third, fourth, fifth, however many down the line, and they'll just do something ridiculous. And it's not the people making the game, it's the people producing and funding the game that are actually behind it financially, driving the production process of the game when it's being developed. They, I really don't know why they do it. I just see it happen, and a game will come out, and it'll just be horrible. There'll be so many holes in it where, like, I feel like I have an anxiety attack forcing myself to play it. Like, I'll play through a game one time because I've paid the money for it. But, for instance, one that had bothered me a lot was Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden 1. And then there was Ninja Gaiden Black that came out. And then on the PS3, they came out with Ninja Gaiden Sigma, which was the original Ninja Gaiden, completely revamped for the PS3. Then Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, which was a whole nother Ninja Gaiden. But they called it Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 because it was the sequel to Ninja Gaiden Sigma. Both of those were headed up by the brainchild behind the series, Tobunobu Itagaki. He worked. He was the head of Team Ninja, which was the development team that developed Ninja Gaiden under Tecmo, which was the company they worked for. And what happened was after the second one, there was a big dispute between Tobunobu Itagaki and Tecmo about what he was going to get paid for this third game. For him to
probably
come
the
back
same argument that Kojima had with Konami.
and I could go off on that one too because that's also a hot button topic for me.
You can talk
He
about
said,
it.
you know what, you guys aren't going to pay me what I want, and you're not going to give me the creative freedom that I need to make this game what it needs to be a sequel to the first two. I'm going to leave. And they tried to freestyle it on their own with their own development team, headed up by one of their own guys. And I'm sure they had the original guys from Team Ninja, but they didn't have the brainchild that made the game what it was. And Ninja Gaiden 3, and I didn't know any of this stuff had happened. I just was so excited when it came out. I went out and bought it. I played it, and within like minutes, I just had to put the controller down and think, like, what the fuck am I playing? They actually took Ryu Hayabusa, the main character, the ninja that you play as, they took his mask off. He was this tan-skinned, anime hair-looking guy. They gave him speaking parts. It was like Final Fantasy, like spliced in there somehow. With it, I mean, I played through it one time, and only one time. Took it back very next day. Only got $19, but I didn't want that piece of shit turd of a game in my video game collection. Wasn't worth keeping around. It was no good. And it bombed. I went online into a few sites where people were talking about it, and I mean, anytime the third Ninja Gaiden was brought up, it was just people losing their minds over how horrible it was. And the same thing, and this part's going to make a lot of people mad. The same thing happened to Metal Gear Solid 5.
Almost exactly the same thing. It's kind of crazy how similar both of the stories are.
Hideo Kojima was the brainchild between the fourth, and in my opinion, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, there is so much content in there. To this day, I could go back and play it, and I'm going to find something. I'm going to unlock something that I didn't even know was there. There is so much detail. Every level has 1,000 different things that you can come across that they've put in there to make the game as immersive as possible. I mean, everything from the sneaking system to how you take cover to how you can observe enemies, and you have almost a complete control of your environment as you move through it, and play the game however you want. You can go in there with a heavy machine gun and just go berserk and start dropping people. You can go in there with your little tranquilizer pistol and stun knife and just go around doing ninja kills on everybody and dragging their bodies off in the bushes. I mean, and not just the gameplay itself, the amount of weapons and content. Metal Gear Solid 5 had so little funding, they do not have a single authentic weapon or weapon name in the entire game. Every single weapon in the entire game is fictional. Even the likeness of them had to be altered in a way to where they would not have to pay any sort of copyright fees. If they have a revolver that looks too similar to a certain 44 Magnum of a certain maker, they wouldn't be able to use that. Even the sniper rifles are all fictional. They're not designed to look like any other actual rifle. Even the names in them are made up. And they look kind of similar, but the game itself, even the graphics, when you first play it, they look good, but the amount of content put into the story mode, there's so much fluff because they couldn't cram all that detail in there, so they made instead of having an extremely intricate storyline with tons of detail, they gave you very little detail in the storyline, but made the world that you play in massive. They gave you the illusion of freedom, but there was a lot of things wrong with the gameplay. There was no button to mash to take cover. You simply ran up against something. If you wanted to run to the edge of that cover and peek out, you didn't peek out. You just kept running, and you ran out and got shot in the face. You had to kind of move to the edge and then like fuck with the camera so you could see around stuff. You couldn't stick to the cover and then jump out from behind the cover and shoot. You just ran from behind the cover and shot. It was like at times it could feel like a regular shoot-'em-up third-person shooter, rather than a sneaking game where you had control over your environment, where you could control how and when you moved from obstacle to obstacle when you were trying to sneak. It was real messy. It was real sloppy, and I'm pretty sure that's the end of the game. That's the end of the saga. They ended it on a bad note because Konami decided, like all other companies do when they get too carried away with trying to control what goes into a game, they make a horrible decision, and the person that's been their meal ticket the entire time, they chase them off, or they put so many limitations on what can be done and what can be spent to produce the game that rather than spending lots of money on a really great game that people are going to go nuts over and buy and it's going to be critically acclaimed by everyone who experiences it, they create a game that's, instead of a 10 out of 10, they end up with a 6 out of 10. And people play it because of what it is, but at the same time, and it costs them money that way in the end.
Yeah. I really, really like the game a lot. I wish I had a lot more time to play it, but I think, just to carry on this topic, I think when Fallout 4 comes out, I have a really good feeling that game is going to change a lot of things about games. It's going to, I think it's going to get to a point where we're not making games anymore. We're creating other universes to live in.
Yeah.
And then
Bethesda's a company that they haven't missed a beat yet. They've always gone with their winning formula, and it's just they've kept the formula the same. They've just expanded on that one original idea, and I think that's why they've kept being so successful.
yeah, I can't wait for that game.
It's gonna suck.
You load it up, and they put out all this crazy gameplay.
Well, every time you hit VATS mode, it's just gonna zoom in on their wieners.
It's just you start the game. It has a cool cinematic. You start the game, you create your character, and then it just loads up a level, and your character is just like just sucking cock.
Yeah, the enemies don't even have
For
guns. They
30
jack off on each other.
for 60 hours.
You can't even pick up the
That's the
guns they
game.
drop because it's their dicks. It disappears with the body. And there's no critical hits.
Yeah.
You load it up.
Headshots would be funny.
You load it up, and you create.
Credits roll and it says, "Fuck you, we got your money."
Or it Rick rolls you. That would be something pretty good.
And
Load it
What
up
if that
and-
game does suck?
Oh, it would be horrible if it sucked.
I don't
That'd be
think
a
it will
nightmare.
because they're also making Doom,
Yeah.
and Doom looks pretty badass.
That looked more like a, like when you sit at the main menu of a game for too long and it just goes into a cinematic preview of all the gameplay?
Yeah,
That's what that looked like. That didn't look like actual gameplay. That looked cinematic.
I'm pretty sure it was real gameplay.
Because I've had a lot of bad experiences with the new games coming out. Destiny's another one. That game is a rip-off of so many other games artistically.
Yeah.
As far as level design goes, when you look at the assault rifles, the ammo display on some of them, it's the same ammo display as what was on the assault rifle in Halo. Bungie couldn't even be original with that. They borrowed from level design concepts from Mass Effect, from the collector base.
Well, the entire idea of the game itself is loosely based on Diablo. You know, you're doing Rage. You're going into these areas. You can level up, and you're facing these enemies in a dungeon, pretty much.
You can be a level 40. If you go online, a level 17 could just one-shot you with a shotgun. The amount of when you level up in that game, you don't really get a real sense of ever gaining ultimate power like you want. Like Borderlands 2, now that's a huge game that I really like because when you level up in that game, like I could be a level 50. If I join a game where there's a level 40 playing, I'm going to run around and just destroy everything and not get killed. He's going to just be like, I keep dying. And you're just going to one-hit all of his enemies. But like if you're a level 50 and you play on level 50, I mean, it's hard. You feel like you're getting killed, but you can level up to that maximum level and become that overpowered, just destroyer of all things that we all want to ascend to when we play these games that are based on leveling up and distributing skill points over time and acquiring more powerful weapons. That's the whole goal. When you reach that level cap and you still can't do anything, that's annoying.
See, well, that's one of the reasons why, like, I'll still sit around and play Diablo 2. Like, because I can get in that game and get to a point, like, I've got a level 99 fucking capped off Amazonian whatever, max cap level in that game, and I'll go and play a LAN party with one of my friends or something, and I'll just be pretty much running through that dungeon, wrecking everything, and they'll be coming up behind me and picking up what little scraps I didn't pick up. But
Yeah, dude.
I've really
Games are
enjoyed
cool.
it since I've come to Evansville.
It's something I like about living is being able to play some really good games.
Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
I've been trying to find a crew nearby where I could play some D&D, but I don't know anybody around me that likes that shit.
Why don't
I-
we play D&D through this sometimes?
We'll do a podcast where we play a game of D&D through the podcast.
Yeah, like one.
Hey,
Once a
Justin, it's
month.
a little bit hard to hear you.
Oh, yeah, that's because the microphone's way over here. No, like I when I moved to Evansville, I found a crew to play D&D with on like Friday nights.
You
But I
should
haven't
wear
done.
those.
Do what?
You should wear those on your head.
I
Like
know,
headphones, you know?
like, but then I'll have to get closer to the computer.
Oh, of course, not that long.
No, this is the end of its.
You
Like,
can
I can do
scoot your
that.
chair, can't you?
Yeah, I can do that.
You should do that.
I
You
will
look,
do that.
you look silly.
Let's move on because I think the podcast is running a little bit long. So let's try to wrap things up.
Almost 3 hours, I'd say so. 20 minutes, and it will be.
Yes. End with a closing statement, or topic or whatever. First, I just want to say to you guys that this is our new podcast, the Philosopher Stone Cast. Next time we do this, it'll be a little bit more, down packed, I guess. I mean, we're still working on it. We're gonna add stuff and take stuff out and stuff. But yeah, like our video, subscribe,
Subscribe.
do all that good stuff.
I'm
And
gonna try and set up
yeah.
a Patreon soon.
And we'll also want to get an email going, so we can get some emails or comments. You guys can comment anything you want to talk about, any topics, anything that's going on. Whether Darkness's head looks like a big ass wiener, or something, anything. Just send us a comment or
Yes,
email.
send me your hate mail, and I'll pick out a few of my favorites and read them on the next one we do.
Yeah, do that. All right. Let's just finish this off real quick. Today's topic was beliefs, and I think we did a pretty good job of keeping that theme throughout the whole podcast. Beliefs in religion and believing in nothing, or what belief actually means, and also the belief in the future of video games, and how it's going to change how we're going to live. It really is. It's catching on, and you're starting to see it almost every day.
Also, belief in these nuts.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching the podcast. Well, actually, there was no viewers, but if you click on it and watch it, thank you.
If you've got 2 hours and 40 minutes of your time to sit and not do anything,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of people on YouTube like that.
maybe we should start, like, every time we break off from a topic and go to another topic, like that should be the end of that podcast, and the next one should be a whole new episode. We should keep them down to 30 minutes max and try to, like, discuss what we're going to debate about before we get into it. Because this was a trial run.
I mean, average podcast lasts about an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is actually pretty normal.
How much time does the average podcast watcher have?
Well, one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to, it's the Giant Bombcast. And they go for about an hour to 3 hours. So I think we'll try to keep it at 2 hours. But yeah.
People mostly
Anyway.
put on podcasts in like the background while they're doing other stuff on the computer, or
Yeah. Anyway, guys, let's just let me play a little bit of music here if I can.
music.
Do you have any Katy Perry?
This is a song that Justin wrote. I don't know if you can hear it. Probably not, though.
It's called When I Think About You, I Touch My Wiener.
That is the name.
So thank you guys again. Like I said, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff. And the Philosopher's Stone cast will be back next time we have time, I guess, next week.
Yep.
Thank you. It was fun.
Penis balls.